just because I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt underneath my t-shirt here, that does not mean that I'm emo. I would consider myself to be a pretty big fan of the Final Fantasy games. However, despite my super fan status, I have a little bit of a confession to make. Well, I haven't really ever actually played Final Fantasy Tactics. Look, I know, it's bad. Don't leave the video. Just hear me out here. Thankfully, the opportunity to redeem myself and actually play this game came in the form of Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles. I have spent over 50 hours in this game, and in this video, I'm going to take you on my journey with Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles. We're going to be looking at three major aspects of this game: the story, the gameplay, and the music. So saddle up your chocobos as we take a look at a newcomer's experience with Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles. We're going to jump into my review of this game by looking first at the story. Now, right off the bat, you are given two versions of this game to pick from. The two options here are Enhanced and Classic. The Classic version is a faithful recreation of the original 1997 game, but uses the English translation from the War of the Lions PSP version. And the Enhanced version here uses the original game as a base, and then enhances the graphics and UI, plus adds full voice acting and some dialogue adjustments. You know, just to make it flow better. The core plot of this game isn't changed at all, so the version you pick really does boil down to personal preference. Because it was my first time playing this game, I decided to play the enhanced version. I was really surprised by the fact that Square decided to include a classic version. It's just something you don't really see at all, and it's cool that you're able to experience an original version without needing to boot up your old PS1. I will eventually get to playing the classic version, and who knows, I might even stream it. With that out of the way, let's jump in. I tell you guys what, Final Fantasy Tactics plot is an absolute roller coaster ride. There were so many twists and turns and emotional highs and lows. There's heroics, love, betrayal, loss. There wasn't a single moment while playing this game where I could predict a single thing that was going to happen. Final Fantasy Tactics is set in the Kingdom of Ivalice during the Lion War. Essentially, what happens here is the King of Ivalice dies, and, well, there needs to be a replacement. However, there are two candidates here for the throne, Princess Avelia and Prince Orinus, with each one here being supported by a different house of nobles. It's not just the nobles who are fighting here. The common folk here have also decided that it is a great time to rise above the nobles and the higher class. Caught in the middle of this war is our main characters Ramza Baelv and Delita Hyrule. No, not that Hyrule. Ramza is from a family of nobles, and Delita is a commoner, but despite their class differences, they are close childhood friends. Both Ramza and Delita break off their ties to nobility, however, after Delita's sister was killed during an uprising. Not very good. Both friends then split up. Ramza goes into mercenary work, as all good Final Fantasy protagonists do, and Delita joins the Black Lion forces. The tea gets even hotter when Ramza meets up with a fellow named Mustadio, who possesses an ancient relic known as a Zodiac Stone. So, now the church gets involved, and this is not a good thing, as the church is actually super corrupt and actually instigated this whole Lion War so that the church can continue to hold its power over the people of Ivalice. Once Ramza learns of the church's corruption, he ends up killing one of the cardinals who is trying to silence him, and then is branded a heretic. So now, on top of dealing with the whole war, Ramza is on a mission to expose the church and their lies. I was super invested in this game's story. The political intrigue, the corruption and manipulation that goes on behind the scenes, and the struggle for power, it was all so very interesting and entertaining. They really hit the nail on the head with all the political storytelling here. This game went a very different direction than what I anticipated, and that's what made it so fun to watch and play, because it wasn't predictable, and because of that, it got me like super invested. In terms of characters, there are just so many that come and go from your party. There is a wide cast of heroes, villains, and side characters. Ramza is the main character of this game, and I want to say his personality is like in between Sora and Cloud. He's not an emo edgelord like Cloud, but he's also not super upbeat like Sora. Ramza is very noble and just. He seeks justice and to expose the evil of those in power. And while most of the time he is pretty serious, there were a couple of side missions that showed his goofy side. Same really goes for the whole game. Everything is very serious. There's not a lot of room for humor. I am glad though that this game takes itself so seriously because it adds a lot more weight to the plot and the things that the characters say. Delita, I thought, was another very interesting character, as he wants to build a better, less corrupt kingdom of Ivalice, and he goes after this by infiltrating the higher powers and manipulating them from the inside for his own benefits. He's got kind of an anti-hero thing going on, you could say. He's not necessarily evil, but not morally just either. Oh, and the voice acting here too. I really like that they actually got voice acting in this game. The voice actors they got they all sound really great and fit into this medieval world. Oh, and the writing too. I'm a sucker for Old English, so I loved that a whole lot of it was used in this game. It doth pleases me. Overall, the story in Final Fantasy Tactics here was really strong. I was super into the politics and the power struggle of it all, and watching it all play out was full of twists, turns, and unpredictability. Now that we have looked at the Final Fantasy part of this game, let's jump into the tactics. As it says in the name, this is a tactics game, or tactical RPG if you are so inclined. I have some experience with tactical RPGs. I've played Mario plus Rabbids and some Fire Emblem games. For those who don't know what a tactical RPG is, it's essentially a giant game of chess. Except for in this one, there's magic and chocobos. I really like strategy-based games. It's like a big puzzle that I have to solve with the least amount of casualties possible, because permadeath is a thing that exists. There are a lot of factors to consider here on the battlefield, like starting formation, unit placement, elevation, and some maps even have like deep water. My strategy for where to move my units and who to target was always changing based on the battle. Whenever an enemy summoner was on the battlefield, they were the immediate target because if not dealt with, you'll have Shiva and Titan wiping your party left and right. Anyway, the core gameplay loop of FFT is super satisfying and addicting, and if the battle is feeling a little too slow for you, there is a speed up option, which was super handy for grinding. One of the aspects about this game's gameplay that is really cool is how flexible all of the job classes are. Any unit, including Ramza, can be assigned to one of 19 jobs. These jobs include archers, knights, black and white mages, etc, etc. Each job is equipped with a whole bunch of different useful and exploitable abilities. There is so much flexibility with these jobs, you can build whatever party combination you desire. Want to build a team of absolute tanks? A team made of just mages? A glass cannon build? You can bust this game wide open when you master the right job combinations. Personally, I built my party with balance in mind. So I have Ramza, Agrius, and another knight unit as my physical attackers, and then I also have a black mage and white mage. However, my black mage has the arithmetic subjob, which allows me to use multi-use magic mathematically at no MP cost. And my white mage has a time mage subjob, so she can use haste and stop and stuff. Like I said, there's so much you can do with each unit and their main and sub-jobs. Plus, add in equipment and their whole zodiac sign system, and you can get really, really in-depth and manipulate the game in a way to make yourself ridiculously overpowered. There is a learning curve when it comes to learning and understanding what each job can do, but if you really want to overwhelm your opponents and become, I kid you not, unstoppable, it's worth the YouTube tutorial video or two. However, if you don't make an attempt to understand the job system, then you will be taken out back and destroyed by this game's difficulty. Even after the balancing adjustments made in the enhanced version, this game is still super tough. Okay, it's not Souls level of difficulty, especially because I was playing on normal, but there were many instances where I would get painfully skill checked. Now, would it have been much easier if I learned how to exploit each job and their abilities sooner? Yeah, probably. But I just think, in general, it's not the easiest game in the world. Because this is technically an older game, there is an assumed amount of grinding you will have to partake in. Not only is it to raise your unit's level, but also to raise their job level and accumulate job points so you can purchase new and stronger abilities. Oh, and each job levels individually, so get used to playing the same battles over and over and over and over again. Honestly, I didn't really mind grinding all that much. I've definitely been spoiled by modern RPGs with little to no grind, so it was kinda nice to experience that part of what RPGs used to be like. Overall, I really enjoy the gameplay loop of Final Fantasy Tactics. From the chess-like gameplay on the battlefield to the job leveling and exploitation, it was all very fun, interesting, and challenging. I get a lot of satisfaction from decimating everyone on the battlefield, including my units. I do also want to mention how much I like the art style here. I don't exactly know how to describe it, but it has a very retro vibe to it. Alright, let's transition now to a very important aspect of any Final Fantasy game, the music. But before that, I would really appreciate if you would help me level up my entertainer job class and subscribe to the channel. It helps me accumulate more job points so I can spend them on making more videos just like this one. Well, hey, look at that. I think my job class just leveled up. One of my absolute favorite parts of any Final Fantasy game is the soundtrack. And I have to be brutally honest with you guys, and it really truly pains me to say it, but I was not grabbed by Final Fantasy Tactics soundtrack. Now, hang on, that doesn't mean that the music in this game is bad by any means. Music is totally and completely subjective, but for me, this game's music doesn't really resonate with me, especially when you compare it to most other Final Fantasy games. That being said, there were like 3 or 4 tracks that I did end up liking, and I would like to sample them for you guys in this video. Now, from what I've deduced from personal tests and online research, is that the soundtrack for the Ivalice Chronicles here is the same as the original 1997 game, just with a higher sound quality. I think this is very fitting, as the game is trying to uphold that original experience. Like I said, I only have 4 tracks here for y'all. The first one we'll talk about is the track that plays while you're choosing your units before a battle. I like the little jingle that plays in the beginning, and the rest has a very military march feel to it. Next is one of the various battle themes. This one is titled A Chapel, and I don't know what it is, but when I'm playing and I hear this track, it's playing in the background, for some reason, it makes me think of my great-grandma's house. I don't know what it is, but I can see her house in my mind. Another battle track here, we've got Apoplexy. Apoplexy. That's the name of this track, Apoplexy. I like how energetic this one is. It starts off really intense, and then there's a really good, like, low part. Our last track is another battle theme, Antipyrectic. That sounds like a medication. This is a much lower track, and it starts off sounding like 2 warriors clashing, and then flows into a lighter section. that's all I got for this one. Like I said, I wasn't really hooked by the soundtrack for the most part, and these 4 tracks were really the ones I liked the most. Nevertheless, I do encourage you all, if you liked what you heard, to go check out the whole soundtrack for yourselves and form your own opinion. Well, that's all I've got to say for Final Fantasy Tactics soundtrack. It makes me think of my great-grandma, which is not a bad thing. I need to state that. My great-grandma was a wonderful lady. Well, at the end of the day, I have had a blast playing and experiencing Final Fantasy Tactics for the first time through the Ivalice Chronicles. The story was fantastic with its political intrigue and all the twists and turns, the betrayal, the manipulation, and heroics. It was very intriguing and entertaining. The gameplay was even more entertaining with all the strategy and the units and the flexibility of the job system. And finally, even though the music wasn't my cup of tea personally, I did find some tracks that will definitely get added to my playlist. Final Fantasy Tactics was an exceptional experience, both in terms of Final Fantasy games and tactical RPGs, and I'm actually really disappointed in myself that I didn't get to playing it sooner. Being able to experience this game through the Ivalice Chronicles with all the updates and the voice acting made this truly a Final Fantasy experience that I will never forget. And you best believe it's going on my top 10.